Welcome to Pondering Passages. I am Curt Austin. My friend Dave Mullins is going to be joining me shortly. We're going to get together. We're going to talk about Psalm 16, a beautiful passage, one that we could chew on for a little bit. We could talk about it. And so come back. We'll talk about that, and you can be a part of that conversation. We'll see you then. Welcome to Pondering Passages. I am Curt Austin, and we are here today talking about Psalm 16. Dave, can I confess something to you today?
You can, yes.
Okay. I'm in love with Tom Cruise. I just can't help it. I just think he's amazing.
Gosh.
Oh, no, wait, that's not what I meant to say.
You've actually confessed that before. just not.
And I was going to go see Top Gun Part 2 today. But we aren't going to do that. So anyway, I did not read Psalm 16, but twice this week.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of insight into the passage. Now I know once I get there will be things that stand out to me, but I enter into this conversation, and I think this is the reason why I bring it up. Number one, full disclosure: anybody who's watching this needs to understand that life happens, and number two, it's okay. Right, Dave? Is it okay? Is it all right?
Yes. Yes, sure it is. Sure it is.
All right. So Psalm 16, you're going to be our biblical scholar, carrying us through.
Oh my gosh.
And leading us into a better understanding of this beautiful passage that I didn't read. So Psalm 16 is a psalm of David. And it just jumps right in there. Go ahead and let me read it. That I can at least contribute that much. So verse 1, keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge. Verse 2, I said to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. Verse 3, the godly people in the land are my true heroes. I take pleasure in them. Verse 4, troubles multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifice of blood or even speak the names of their gods. That's pretty.
It is. Are you going to read all of the psalm or just those 4
I can
verses?
if you would like. Let's go
ahead.
Verse 5. Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. The land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. Verse 7, I will bless the Lord who guides me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. Verse 8, I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. That's pretty fun. Verse 9, no wonder my heart is glad, and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. Verse 10, for you will not leave my soul among the dead, or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. Verse 11, you will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. Not bad.
See,
I wish I'd read it.
I figured there'd be some regret. So, yeah.
There's always regret.
It's a beautiful psalm, and it's a great what I want to say, it's a great direction for life, I guess. He's really given us, his kind of what his life is based on. I can't think of the word that I'm really wanting to say right now, so I don't know. Maybe you could contribute that way. What word am I thinking?
What word am I thinking? Let's see. Well, I think certainly it is it's not a mantra. Mantra is more like a singular statement kind of a thing.
It's like you set the direction of your life, not the goal, but actually the direction on what you're going to acclimate to. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. The acclimation of his life.
It's kind of a guiding principle, a guiding. Yes. Last night. This is the kind of contribution I'm going to make today. But last night we were sitting on the couch, and my little dog Louie was sitting there beside me, and somebody said something about true north. It's my true north.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Louie, as I am known to do. And I was talking to him about how does his true north guide him as well? And I pointed north. I said, that way's north. And he turned and he looked at his head, and then he saw his toy and he ran down and got his toy and he brought it back, thinking that that's what I was telling him to do.
Right. Yeah.
But it's reminiscent of this, in that we need occasionally to be reminded where our true north is, and we need to be pursuing that. And this is beautiful in that it's talking about what that means for his life as he does that.
Yeah, and there are some results of having that as your true north or your acclamation. We see him asking, God, keep me safe. Why? Because you're my refuge. I come to you for refuge. And he says to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. I love that. I love that. It doesn't come from my ability to think or be creative or earn a living. It doesn't come from anything else every good thing I have comes from you. All the broken things I had a hand in. So, yeah.
Almost 100%.
Yep. And I don't know. I was slow me down if you want to, Curt, but we've got several verses here.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We're fine.
Verse 3, the godly people in the land are my true heroes. And it's like, who are our true heroes? Who are the people that we look up to? And are they people that display godliness? Or are they people that we see as our heroes because they're wealthy or celebrity or business tycoons or who you can throw our heroes the saints.
Yeah, I love that image and the challenge that presents, because if we're thinking of this passage as kind of this guidance for our lives, then you can always choose who your heroes are.
Yeah.
Right? You can always determine who those people are that are going to help set the course of your, that again, kind of lead you that direction, right? I mean, what does a hero do? That you want to emulate them. You take pride in what they have done. You kind of own that. For people who are really into sports, right? Peyton Manning in Indianapolis as a football player is the guy, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that I'm going to emulate that and become a great football player, but I really like the qualities he brought to the game and some of that. Well, do we ever consider the saints that sit in the seat with us, what qualities they bring to the game?
Yeah.
I can put probably on one hand the number of people that I have kind of tried to emulate the way they live their life, or the way they've chosen to follow God. Right.
And that, I think, is almost unique because, you mentioned Peyton Manning, and there are a lot of sports figures and business figures and stuff that will come out with books about their lives, and people read it, and they will try to incorporate kind of their, the hero's mindset or the hero's approach or all of this. And, I'm doing this because I read in Buffett's book that this is how he,
Yeah.
But really, are those the folks that we should be looking to? The psalmist says he looks to the godly people in the land.
Yeah. It's not that we can't read those books or try to accomplish those things. It's interesting, right? It's interesting I still find fascination with Michael Jordan and his career, his dedication to his craft.
Yeah.
As a person, maybe not, but as his craft, yes. But what if I spent just as much time? I think Ed Laughlin in Wilmore. My next door neighbor. God, he still sticks in my head as the guy who had it figured out. Like I worked with him on a slideshow one time. He wanted to take all these pictures he'd ever taken of all of the work he'd ever done. He was a craftsman, beautiful craftsman, shepherd. He was the gardener for the guy who created Colgate toothpaste. That was his job. And he had this, this massive estate, had sheep, and Ed made his place magical, building little bridges out of wood across the creeks and all this stuff. And he'd taken pictures over time. And so I put the whole slideshow together. This is when I was working at the media center. The whole slideshow together and put music. This is now understand, this is in the 80s, late 80s. So I used, who's the guy who played the little flute, the saxophone kind of a guy. Kenny G. I'd put Kenny G as kind of some of the music. And
you sounded just like him, by the way.
I did. You recognized it. See?
Yeah, that was uncanny.
He looked at it and he said, and he always called me Lad. He went, Lad, this is just beautiful, but I just need you to change the music. I said, change the music? He said, yeah. He said, before I knew Christ, in my sinful life, I spent a lot of time in jazz clubs listening to saxophone and drinking and gallivanting. And that music takes me back to that time. And I'd rather not have that associated with this work.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, here he is. He's in his 80s. And he's still wanting to separate his current life from his life of sin.
Yeah.
Even in a little thing like a choice of music. Wow. Can I say I'm that dedicated?
Yeah. And that takes really to verse 4. He says in verse 3, the godly people are his heroes and takes pleasure in them. Mm-hmm. And then he compares it to those who chase after other gods.
Yeah.
Referencing kind of the practices of those days of, like sacrifices and all this other stuff that the other gods call, these folks to in his day and age. And really, for us today, troubles multiply for those who chase after all these things that simply don't fulfill us or don't satisfy us. And the question is, and that's exactly what you were saying with this gentleman that you knew.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to take part in that sacrifice anymore, chasing after those things or even
he had
listening.
Put that behind him. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, this first part of the psalm really sets up, really the acclamation of this guy's life. And then it's almost like, I don't know, kind of like a love letter to God.
Beautiful, Dave.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. You could see this in someone's writing this to their love. You're my inheritance. You're my all in all, my cup of blessing. And you guard all that was mine. And the land you have given me is a pleasant land. I think in some translation it talks about, the boundaries have fallen in pleasant places. What a wonderful inheritance. Because land was a big deal then. It still is, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not changed.
Yeah, that, sees that these blessings, that God has given has just been pleasant blessings and a wonderful inheritance.
Wow.
And I would venture that everyone watching this, if you really step back, you could say the same thing. If we look at things with a discontented eye, I want this, I want that, I want the other. Yeah, that's it. That's the eye. We look past all of the blessings that God pours into our lives. And I think if we take a look at our life, maybe with a different view, we would see that what God has given us is pleasant and a wonderful inheritance. It might not be what the guy down the street has, but envy just really builds ingratitude in us.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're
say
really
that differently, if you would, because I know what you were saying, but I heard it differently. Envy builds what?
Ingratitude.
Ingratitude.
Yeah, I don't, is that even a word, ingratitude?
I think you've just made up a whole new. You're like
A
Shakespeare.
whole
You
new-
just make up words and
Yeah,
they become part of
yeah.
the English language.
Well, what's the opposite of gratitude? I know discontent,
Ungracious,
ungraciousness,
not great, not grateful.
not
Anyway,
great. Yeah,
semantics.
yeah. But that's the thing,
Okay.
and it really keeps us from experiencing what this psalmist apparently is experiencing.
Hey, can we repeat this next week? Can we just redo it after I've read it a few days? I really feel like I missed out.
Yeah, it's a great psalm. It really is. And the next part, it's like this is his response is no, go back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I will bless the
Oh,
Lord
yeah. Verse
who
7 and
guides
8.
me. So he receives the blessing from God, and his response is, I will bless the Lord. What's that mean? I mean, that's the formative question. What does it mean for me to bless the Lord who guides me?
This whole psalm is formative. You could
Yes,
spend
it is.
it's 11 verses. You could spend 11 days, 11 weeks thinking
11, yeah.
about
Or 11 months.
one verse. 11. Ooh.
Yeah.
There are people who do that, right? They take a word for the year or something like
Yeah.
that. This is one of those psalms where you could take the psalm for the month is verse 7. I will bless the Lord who guides me, even at night. My heart instructs me.
And I love that. I've loved this for years. The thought that if we are open to it, God will instruct us even at night. Even when we're asleep, God is still on the job. And our formation doesn't have to end when our eyes close.
So this verse reminds me of the passage in Exodus where it says that God hardened Pharaoh's his heart, so he would not let the people go. And I've studied that. I've read that about that a lot, and because there's a lot of people who are like, well, God's just screwing with, God's doing this. And the reality is, no, God allowed his heart to continue to harden itself. Every time he turned away from God, he looked away from God, it hardened his heart. This is the absolute opposite of that, where every time we bless the Lord and look to the Lord, our heart then becomes more full, and our heart can instruct. We were talking before this show about the fact that God speaks to people in dreams, right? Well, why is that? God's not going to speak to people who aren't seeking God. Well, unless he's calling them out, But if he's giving them guidance and loving them and
maybe jumping off a little bit, but something you said just really piqued my thought process when you said God hardened his heart. And I thought about the whole area of brain science, and how when we do certain things, it creates these neural pathways, and the more that we are in those practices, the harder those neural pathways become, the deeper they become, and the harder it is to get out of it. So really, and this was long before brain science. One of the things I think you could make the argument is that hardening of heart was just the natural process that takes place when you are determined to live your life in a certain manner. And so did God do it? Yeah, God did it because that's the way he designed us. But really, Pharaoh had a choice. He just chose not to go that pathway. And we have a choice. We have a choice to live like this psalmist with this acclamation he has, and to really recognize God's blessing and to bless him in return. And when we do, we end up, I think, where the psalmist is in verse 8. I know that the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. And he continues that same thought process in the rest of the psalm in verse 9.
Again, if you lived in verse 8, in verse 8 for a month and you said, the Lord is right beside me, then every decision you made, every action you would take would be different. For a long time after my grandmother died, this is very animist, but is it animist where you kind of worship your ancestors?
It's ancestry.com.
So for a long time after my grandmother died, interestingly, I was more concerned about what she was thinking in heaven as she was looking down on the decisions I made than God in heaven, or better yet, to reference verse 8, God was right beside me.
Yeah.
And I ignored God right beside me. I really cared that now Grandma could see everything I was doing. Wouldn't she be ashamed of me? Wouldn't she be sad of these things I'd made, these decisions I'd made? And verse 8, coming off of verse 7, it doesn't put a judgmental spin on it at all.
Right.
God is right beside me. Why? Because of judgment? No. Because of love and care and guidance and all of those things.
And so no wonder my heart is glad. It's like you say, no wonder I'm having this experience within myself. My heart is glad. I rejoice. My body rests in safety because the Lord is with me.
I should have put 7, 8, and 9 together, right? Because he's talking about when he's sleeping, his heart is, and then verse 9, my body rests in safety.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
For you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. That turns a little dark.
Well, it's actually, I think, a verse that they've used in the New Testament about Jesus.
Referencing his resurrection.
Yeah. 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 So that's a messianic verse there.
You are such a scholar. Thank you so much.
Listen to you. And verse 11 is really the one verse in this psalm that I have highlighted.
Of all of them?
Yes, of all of them.
Why is that?
I'm taken with, he says, you will show me the way of life, because I think we're all looking for a way. The folks used to go in the desert to talk to the desert fathers and mothers looking for a word to live by. And I think the psalmist has given that word, and it's this, this way of life that he's sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And you will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. So there's joy there, there's pleasures, and it's because of his presence, God's presence, and being aligned with God's presence and being aligned with him. So it's a beautiful psalm. You would have loved it.
Oh, I'm heartbroken.
You would have been all over. Well, you know what? You can read it this week.
Then I'd have to read 16 and 17, and that's just a lot of work.
That's I don't know. I didn't try to figure out how long it takes to read this psalm. I'm sure it's not that long.
No, it wouldn't be that long. It would. None of this, other than maybe one or two, are that long. They take minutes, at most minutes to read. But boy, if you spent, again, and I don't know how you, if the goal is to read these passages in a formative mindset, then you wouldn't necessarily have to read the entire thing.
Right. You could stop if something really catches you. With Lectio Divina, you look through, you go through looking for kind of that sense of where God is saying, "Hey, take a look at this. Stop here. Reflect on this. Contemplate this. What does this mean for where you are right now?"
Yeah.
And maybe you're at a place to where it's like, okay, I don't see what God has given me as a pleasant land. This is a difficult land. You know what? It can be pleasant and difficult. Two things can be true at the same time.
Ooh.
The pleasantness doesn't come from the lack of difficulty. It comes from knowing that, we're not alone, and, God is with us. And, it might not be okay now, but one day it will be.
You know, when we read verse 6, which is the land you have given me is a pleasant land, I was immediately thinking about my yard. I love
Of course you
my
would.
yard.
You do. You do love your
I do
yard.
love my yard. We've lived here now 20 years. 22 years.
Oh, man.
And when we moved in, there were 2 pine trees and a giant street lamp, not the Narnia kind of street lamp that it was beautiful and lovely in the backyard, but a big, like the guy got it from the street company when they were installing new street lamps. He worked for the electric company.
Okay.
And so he got one and put it in his backyard. So it was just like this, it was horrible. And we have we've planted, I think we counted one day, we've planted 28 trees in our yard since we've lived here, and bushes and flowers, and we've mown it. It's a lot of work.
You have a greenhouse now too.
We've got a greenhouse. We've got a shed. We've got benches. We've got raised beds, and it is a ton of work. But I love it.
Yeah.
So God gives us this pleasant land, and it harkens back to Genesis, right? I mean, God didn't just say, "Here's a beautiful garden. Here, just enjoy it. It'll take care of itself." No, your job is to help maintain that, to take care of it. And I think that is, boy, if you take that to the figurative approach to this, that God has given us, everything that God has given us that is good and pleasant takes maintenance.
Yeah.
It doesn't just drop in your lap.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to take care of it. My dad was over a couple of weeks ago, and we were walking around the backyard, and he went, "Wow, there's going to be a point where this is going to be too much work for you." And I said, "I'm this close." I mean, it's tough. And, because you got things to trim every day. There's something to trim, but I think that's true with our spiritual journey as well. Our faith journey. I'd rather say faith journey. There's lots of pruning. There's lots of planting. There's lots of watering.
It takes work too.
It takes work.
Yeah.
But it's still a joy because it's ours.
Paul says in Philippians to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. But then we usually leave off the next verse, which is actually part of the same sentence, which is, for God is at work in you, both to will and to do. So both to want to and actually do the good work that he's prepared beforehand to be your way of life.
Boy.
Yeah.
You should be a preacher. Let's start a church.
Yeah. We've talked about that. Maybe with all our viewers. Well,
the offering plate would be a little thin,
a little light.
Well, Dave, this has been,
unless they give all pennies.
Yeah. Oh man, we did that once. We did. I set up this box. It was going to be pennies from heaven. And I had this guy build this box, and I calculated how many pennies it would take to get the number of dollars that we needed. And it was like 4 foot tall and 4 foot wide, and it had a big plexiglass in the front. You put your pennies in, they'd roll down, and people gave and gave and gave. And we ended up I miscalculated. It turned out that the pennies were only about a foot deep. It was all pennies a foot deep. And then I realized I didn't get any volunteers to horse that stuff to the bank. So I had to take them all. They're heavy. They were really heavy.
And I'm sure the bank employees just loved you.
No, because I hadn't cleared it with the bank. I hadn't cleared it with anybody who was going to take them. What a mess. Well, Dave, thank you for this. This is fantastic. This is really, really good stuff.
It's a really good psalm.
It is a good psalm. You did a good job. I think I'm going
so
to give you a raise. I'm going to give you a raise. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Anybody who is listening to this today, thank you for joining that. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Share this with your friends. Let us know what you think. And you can always follow us on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. We have our own website, which is kind of fun. ponderingpassages.com. Let me put that up there, ponderingpassages.com. And so we would love for you to follow that as well. And we have then some blog posts, we have some audio, we have the videos, and common, and as Quincy pointed out, we've got great. What is it called when somebody tells how much they like the site?
Reviews, responses.
Yeah, the reviews that you've put up for us.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about the testimonials.
Testimonials. So you got testimonials, and leave a testimonial. Talk about.
They are fake testimonials, by the way.
Oh, nobody needed to know that.
If people can't figure that out.
Yeah. So thanks again, and we will be doing Psalm 17, Scout's Honor. I'll read Psalm 17 this next week, and then we'll have a great discussion about that, unless I just get stuck on verse 8 of Psalm 16, and then we'll just may have to spend 20 minutes talking about that. Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great day. When we got together for the picnic out at the farm, she came up and she had these big holes in her jeans. And I pulled a 20 out of my pocket. I said, Natalie, would this help you buy some pants without holes? And she said, I wondered which grandpa was going to point that out. Said, wait a minute.
What a great response.